Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's Fatmata here from Traditionally Inspired Meaningful Art, and today I'm going to do the this or that challenge. This is a challenge in the sewing community that was brought over to YouTube by Julie over at the Curated Curvy. If you're not already following her channel, I've linked it down below. She's amazing. So you should definitely give it a follow. And she got the idea from the Love to Sew podcast when they had done a this or that challenge, and she adapted and brought those questions over. So you'll find out a little bit about my sewing preferences, and I'll begin with topic number 1, sewing prep. Shopping new or shopping my stash? I'll definitely have to say stash busting is my love. I have really enjoyed utilizing my stash. I buy fabrics as I see them because many of the places that I shop at the most include the thrift store, clearance and or remnant like bins, and G Street Fabrics, which is a local to me family owned fabric store. So I'm really happy to have like a more local family run independent sort of business for fabric, and they have a room that has a $2.97. Part of it is remnants, I think. Most of it, I believe, is dead stock fabric, so I'm really grateful to have them. But because of that, I have really increased my stash in a very healthy way. You may have already seen a stash organization video. I have plenty to work with, so often if I'm getting ready to sew a project, I will go into my stash and pull out a number of options and pick from there. And then when I'm shopping, I just pick fabrics that I like. I don't often shop for that particular like project per se. Next, PDFs versus paper patterns. I'm big on paper patterns. I often shop at JOANN when they're having their Big 5, Big 4 pattern sales, and I'm just very lucky to be in a place that has a JOANN very close by, and it has made, you know, committing to actually utilizing a pattern for my sewing very economical for me, very doable. So that's what I often do. Last year was the first year that I ever even attempted to utilize a PDF pattern, and I could see myself doing a bit more of it, but for right now, paper patterns all the way. Cutting versus tracing. I started off tracing a lot of my patterns, and as I realized how much effort that took, I've definitely become someone who cuts into my patterns. If I can cut out the biggest size in a particular envelope category, like size band, even better, because in my heart I feel like I'm not losing anything, because often then the subsequent smaller pattern sizes are kind of nested within it. But for the most part, I cut into my patterns for the most part now, and then if I need to size up, if I need to repurchase the pattern, I might do that. But otherwise, often you'll probably see me just adding an extra, you know, 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch as I'm cutting out the fabric, if I make that mental note. Do I make a muslin or just go for it? I will absolutely say I often just go for it. Even when I'm attempting a hack and different things like that, I have grown very confident in my abilities to kind of decipher pattern sizing and things like that. So I will go for it and often use an inexpensive fabric in that process. So let's say a wearable toile. I'm always doing a wearable toile, and that has often worked out quite well for me, even if it's not an inexpensive fabric, maybe something that isn't as precious to me as whatever it is that I'm attempting to use. I've actually had wearable toiles that just turned out to be so good that we didn't even go for whatever the original idea was. Topic number 2 is all about fabric. And the first question is in-store versus online shopping. I'm a huge in-store shopping person. G Street Fabric has my heart. JOANN's remnant section has my pockets, and we need to detach a little bit from that. And then online shopping, I only really do online shopping, let's say often for my birthday. I might treat myself to some fabric from Mood Fabrics online. And I think to date that has been my only online fabric shopping experience, is Mood Fabrics online. So other than that, I'm quite predominantly purchasing fabric in the stores. Again, I know I'm lucky to have really great access to a phenomenal store that carries great apparel fabric. Knits versus wovens. I'm a wovens girl, hands down. I appreciate a quality knit, and I'm getting better about finding and knowing which ones to select. I'm warming up to it. However, it has not taken the place of my beloved wovens. I just understand a woven fabric and they get me. We're here. So it's always gonna be wovens. Tumble dry versus hang to dry. I do hang my me-made garments to dry. I don't have a ton of space to do that, but I will hang them up all over the like shower rod and different things like that, and then swap them out for the next set. But for the most part, I hang my me-mades to dry, mostly. Rotary cutters versus scissors. I have not looked back after getting my rotary cutter. I gifted myself the 60-inch by 40-something inch, like the wider rotary cutter mat from JOANN when I had a 60% off coupon once a couple of years ago, and that has lived on the floor in 2 places that I've lived now under a carpet. So the kids, I have young children, so they will run all over. So we don't have, our homes are never like heavily furnished, I would say. Like we don't have a ton of coffee tables and those sorts of things. So in any large space that I can carve out where there's a carpet, I just slid that really wide cutting mat under the carpet. And often when I'm cutting, I just remove the carpet, like lift it up, do my cutting, put the carpet back over it. No one's the wiser. It's great. But rotary cutters, especially when I'm working with lighter, finer fabrics, I couldn't even imagine having to pin a pattern in place and then use scissors to cut. Couldn't even imagine it. Wouldn't dare do it. Topic number 3 is clothing construction. Do I follow the pattern or wing it? This was an interesting one. In my mind's eye, because I hack patterns so much, I wanted to be able to say, oh, I wing it. And I actually don't. When I actually watch myself preparing to sew, I always have the pattern instructions up, even if I'm gonna do my own thing. But I will always go through a pattern, most of the time following it all the way through, or reading in advance and reading through it. If I want to finish it differently, I might do that. But I will always follow the pattern, usually at least once, unless there's already an alteration that I'm planning to do. Bias tape finish versus facings. I don't hate a facing, I'll be honest with you. I just did like 5 Project Dresser Girl dresses and I had that option. I could have swapped out the facing that the pattern had for bias binding, and I didn't. And it probably would have been easier, and I preferred the facing. I think there's a time and a place for each. Honestly, for my own garments, I probably would just want to line the bodice. So there's also that. Button fly versus a zip fly. I have made a number of trousers, I can say that now. I don't make trousers that often though. But if I were to choose between those two, absolutely a zip fly. Even in my like ready to wear clothing. Not really, maybe it's just not as accessible to me, but I'm not huge on the idea of the button fly. I don't like all the bulk it creates personally. Next is buttons by hand versus machine sewn. I tried to machine sew buttons onto a button-up shirt I made last year at the end of the year. It's a McCall's pattern, one of the ones that I did with a cotton voile for Mood Fabrics. I broke five buttons and had to just switch them out and go with a completely different set of buttons. So I don't do it well yet. I may convert one day, but right now I sew all of my buttons by hand. What I will say is I definitely double the thread even before I put it in the eye of the needle. So my thread is like a quadruple thread. It's very thick and very sturdy, and that way I don't have to keep, like, I don't have to sew the button 100 times for it to really be sturdy. I can probably do like in and out maybe 3 or 4 times. And I feel pretty good about it because the thread is so thick. From there, we have fusible versus sew-in interfacing. I'm a fusible girl. It's just what I've been using since I've started sewing so far. snip as you go or all at once, I snip as I go. It just helps me make sure that I get all the things. Press as you go or all at once. My iron is on when I begin sewing. I press as I go. I'm very fortunate where in both of my sewing setups, I have done it in a way that either I can pivot from a surface to another surface, so I can have the iron kind of on and either plugged in and not on, and then I turn it, whatever, available to me. And I love pressing as I go. I just love to see it come together. I love to see everything in place and neat. It's a joy. We're on topic number 4. It's the final topic about sewing habits. They want to know if I'm a late night seamstress or a daytime seamstress. And I want the people in the back to give the answer. Come on, just let them know. All right, if you've been on this channel for long enough, you already know. We're late night seamstresses over here on this channel. You can tell by the timestamps, okay? It's, yeah. I sew at night once the children are in bed. And I feel like that gives me the optimal freedom of saying, like, I have done and I have given what I needed to give. This is me time. And I feel no guilt about it. So I prefer late. Do I prefer it? I don't know if I prefer it, but that's just when I have the opportunity and I'm milking it. So that's what I do. Slow and steady versus frantic sewing, my people. I will say this. I'm a little bit of both. I see the value? I see the place for both of these things. I was working on a Zimmerman inspired dress. I loved the fact that I allowed myself to take that project slow and steady. It allowed me to catch some things that could have been a detriment to the project further down the line had I not taken that moment to assess the situation and course correct. And I was able to do that because I was going slow and steady. There is a project that I know I will begin working on that I may also choose to go quite slow, quite steady. And I love those kinds of projects. But also, if I want to make leggings for my kids, I don't need that to be like a as we go. Like, I want to cut out 5 or more and whip them up. That's what I want to do. And I also don't quite enjoy altering a lot of garments that I have previously made or that were, you know, store-bought that now need alterations. However, if I just do them in unison, if I do them with a deadline in mind, I find that I'm successful. More than if I'm like, hey, get inspired, get motivated to do that, because I won't be. Because I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. So for those things, frantic sewing or having a deadline or sewing for a holiday or sewing for, you know, those sorts of things, I think it just sometimes is the kick in the pants I need to get the thing done. And then slow and steady is like, listen, I'm learning a new technique. I'm leaning into creativity. I'm exploring some things. And there's also a place for that. So I'm loving both at the same time. Because I could do a little bit of frantic one night and then get back to my slow and steady project. Because I work on multiple things at a time, most of the time. Finally, tidy as you go or one big cleaning session. I am a one big cleaning session person. I have allowed you all in to see the ugly that occurs when magic is being made in the sewing room. And I want to apologize for it. It gets messy. But then we clean it up over time after like the 4 projects that were, you know, happening in the background have been worked on. And then things get put back and it's all right. So that is my this or that. Thank you so much, Julie, for tagging me and everyone for watching. Hopefully you feel like you've learned something new about my sewing practice. And if you are nodding your head because you already have been following the timestamps and you knew some of the answers, well, there you have it. Fantastic. Yeah, so if you are interested in doing the this or that challenge, please do head over and share so we can know your preferences as well. There were many people that I wanted to tag, many of which who have already made this video. So I just want to put a shout out there. If you have a sewing YouTube channel, would like to let us know your preferences, please do join the family. But that I think is all for now. As far as what I'm wearing, this is my crochet project that I had been working on late summer. I have it backed with a dress underneath here. So it's like a nude sort of dress. And this is an orange cover-up that I made. I'll see if I can put in a full-length photo for you to see it. But yeah, that is my this or that. Have a wonderful day. Stay creative, folks. Bye-bye.